24 Hour Fitness, which my producers have informed me is a gym, has just sent out a new dress code to employees. A conservative named Carlos Turcios got a copy of this policy, which states, currently approved movements and or social causes, along with approved expressions are Black Lives Matter, BLM, the words, Pride, or the Pride rainbow logo, the Juneteenth logo symbol or date on Juneteenth. So other days of the year, no Juneteenth. You gotta just wear the BLM clothing on the rest of the days. And then a flag or United States logo, so this is just the American flag, on holidays such as Memorial Day, Flag Day, July 4th, Veterans Day, Patriots Day, etc. On those days, you're allowed to wear the American flag at a gym in America. Every other day, the American flag is prohibited. Can't do it. You can wear the Pride flag any day of the week. You can wear the BLM symbols whenever you want. The American flag, that's a handful of days a year. Each Pride Month, there's a fact that seems stranger and stranger. Put the gym aside for a second. If you serve your country in the military, you are celebrated for one day. If you give your life serving your country, you are celebrated for one day. But if you do weird sex stuff, you are celebrated for a whole month. Now the situation is even more disturbing. At this particular gym, and at an increasing number of other institutions, schools, businesses, public spaces, you've seen them, if you simply support your country, you just wave a flag, maybe you wear a flag sweater or something, you're allowed to express that a few days each year. If you support street violence and buggery, you can express it 24/7, 365. But the craziest part is, the policy actually makes perfect sense. Because flags are symbols, they represent things. In this case, they represent two countries, two different kinds of country that are fundamentally opposed to each other. And things that are fundamentally opposed to each other can't simultaneously be true. They can't simultaneously occupy the same space. As flag enthusiast and Supreme Court Justice Sam Alito recently observed, one side or the other is going to win, as go the gyms and the schools and the businesses and the public spaces. So goes the nation. I'm Michael Knowles. This is the Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. According to Harvard researchers, there could be a hidden UFO civilization underneath the earth, living in volcanoes or underneath lakes, according to Harvard researchers. We'll get to it. It's actually a pretty good study. We will get to. I'm indebted to these Harvard researchers for taking the conversation about the UFOs beyond the stupid nonsense that we're hearing out of the media and out of Washington. We'll get to it in a moment. But speaking of debt, we got to talk about how you can zap your debt. Go to zapmydebt.com. Does your debt keep you tossing and turning at night? The unfortunate reality is that our banking system is designed to trap you in debt. These insanely high interest credit cards and loans make it nearly impossible to pay off your debt. Thankfully, there's a new way out of the debt trap with Zero Debt USA. You've heard me talk about pivotal debt solutions. Well, now they're known as Zero Debt USA. And they have new aggressive strategies that can end your debt faster and easier than you thought possible. Zero Debt USA can cut or even eliminate interest. They will help find programs to write off your balances so you owe less. They can stop those threatening phone calls, and they can do all of this without bankruptcy and without a loan. Bottom line is, they find every solution possible to end your debt permanently. Before you do anything, contact Zero Debt USA at zapmydebt.com. Talk to them for free and find out how fast they can help you get out of debt. That is zapmydebt.com. Zapmydebt.com today. Before I get to anything else, speaking of changing symbols, there's a very, very important story. A white girl has gone viral for saying the N-word, sort of. And she's gone viral, and everybody on the internet is talking about her, and I can't avoid commenting on her. But I have a little bit of a different take than most people I've seen. Here is the commentary in question.
Everybody I know who's married right now, they're married to broke-ass niggas. And they don't care. We don't give a about your money. I couldn't care less about your money, okay?
There it is. There's the N-word. Did we bleep the N-word? Do we have to bleep? We have to bleep the N-word. So I guess you got the ga though. Okay, we got the ga. It's the soft R, as they say. And for this woman's going to be totally canceled, I assume. Except that her recitation of the N-word here doesn't seem like the most problematic part of the video. Obviously, in this context, the N-word with the soft R, the G, doesn't even refer to black people. She's saying her friends who are married to broke A N's. But the N's are, unless all of her friends' husbands are black guys, it just refers to fellas. That's basically what the word means in the colloquial vulgar speech. In fact, when I'm singing along to rap songs, if I don't want to be canceled, I'll just replace that word with fella. Whoop-de-whoop, fella, what? I'm the D-O-double-G. So that's what the word means here. That's what the signifier is signifying. Even so, she could go out and talk about Guidos, right? That's a slur for Italians, and even unlike in this case, even if that word were referring to the specific racial group that it's most commonly associated with, she wouldn't get canceled for that. She could go out, she could refer to, I don't know, mix. There are all sorts of other racial slurs I'm sure that I'll be pilloried for reciting here. But she wouldn't be canceled for it. It's that word in particular. And yet, what about the F word? What about the ASS? What about that kind of vulgar speech? I think is far more problematic here, because it's just not the sort of thing we like to do in public. It's just not. If we're talking as she is about the relation between men and women, call me old-fashioned. I don't like to hear ladies speak that way. And I try not to speak that way in front of ladies. I think that's wrong for men to do that too. I think it's wrong for men to do it all the time. I think it's a venial sin. But occasionally at the bar, guys talking, sometimes a loose word comes out. But we try not to do that. We make an extra special effort not to do that in front of women. Why? Because men and women are different. Because of the point that this girl is making and the point that conservatives have been trying to make for 10 years now, that men and women are different. And if we really believe that, don't we need to reflect that in our speech? Speech is what distinguishes us from the lower animals. Speech is the distinction that human beings have. So if we really believe this stuff, if we really believe in a traditional society, and we really believe in a moral order, and we really believe even just in the difference between men and women, and we really believe in conserving something worth conserving, those are the words you got to watch out for. A little vulgar term that comes up that's not even being used as a racial epithet, that's relatively minor. Okay, speaking of broke people, Kevin Spacey is just broken down on the Piers Morgan show because he doesn't have any money anymore.
Where do you live now? Well, it's funny you asked that question, because this week, where I have been living in Baltimore is being foreclosed on. My house is being sold at auction.
Really?
So I have to go back to Baltimore and put all my things in storage.
Really?
So the answer to that question is, I'm not quite sure where I'm going to live now, but I've been in Baltimore for since we started shooting House of Cards there.
Are you facing bankruptcy?
Been a couple of times when I thought I was going to file, but we've managed to sort of dodge it, at least as of today.
How much money do you have?
None.
Kevin Spacey, one of the greatest actors of his generation, is totally bankrupt. And I feel sorry for him, but I feel sorry in a very particular way. I feel pity for Kevin Spacey in the way that Dante feels pity for the sinners in hell. I don't feel pity for Kevin Spacey in a way that denies the justice of what he's going through. I think what he's going through is absolutely just. I feel pity for him because he just didn't really know, and he kind of thought he could get away with it. Kevin Spacey is facing the just consequences of his evil actions. He did lots of very bad things that are very public. He behaved in a way that one is not supposed to behave, and had a reputation apparently for doing so. Now he is being persecuted for doing those bad things, and he's crying about it. If Kevin Spacey were being persecuted for doing the right thing, I strongly suspect he wouldn't be crying about it. When people undergo persecution for goodness and justice, for God, for the faith, when they're martyred, you think of the Christians in the Colosseum, they're dancing as they're about to be fed to lions because they know that what they're doing is right, and they understand that it is for the greater glory of God, and it's a good thing, and they don't have anything to fear. Ultimately, the princes of this world can threaten you and try to make you scream, but ultimately there is a higher power than those princes, and you're on the right side. Kevin Spacey's crying because he's being persecuted for doing all sorts of bad things, and this is common in our culture. I don't even mean to pick on Kevin Spacey, but Kevin Spacey was told, "Hey, you can do all sorts of weird sex stuff." Like that a lot of people are talking about in this month of June, and you can sleep with people that you're working with, and you can pick up young guys on movie sets, and you can do this, that, and the other thing. And it's cool. It's Hollywood. It doesn't matter. And this is what Harvey Weinstein was told. This is what those two guys have become figures of the Me Too movement. But it's like everybody in Hollywood, not actually everybody, but statistically everybody. 99.9% of people engage in this kind of stuff. And it seems normal. Not normal according to actual moral standards, but normal according to common behavior. And so they're all told, oh, it's fine, man. Love is love, Kevin Spacey. Feel free to go, grope the PA on some movie set or whatever. Yeah, it's cool, man. It's whatever. It's Hollywood. You're the man. You're a star. You can do whatever you want, right? But in reality, according to the real moral order, that isn't true. And so the problem is when you wed yourself to the spirit of the age, as Fulton Sheen tells us, you find yourself a widow in the next. These passing fashions, these passing norms and standards that aren't rooted in anything real, they're going to come and go. And then one day Hollywood's going to come up and say, oh, hey, all that behavior that we've been encouraging for 50 years, yeah, that's over now. And we're going to throw you in jail if we don't like you because of it. And so he says, no, but you told me it was okay. Yeah, but those people who told you that were liars, and they weren't actually grounded in the proper and real moral order. So he's weeping like a figure in Dante's Inferno. He's saying, "Oh no, this is awful. What misery I'm in," and it's a special kind of misery that actually provokes tears because it's the misery that I suspect deep down Kevin Spacey knows he deserves. And now we don't talk about things like that so much in our culture. It's all just a lot of happy talk and a lot of relativistic, squishy stuff. You got to talk about real things. When you want to talk, you got to check out Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Knowles. The cost of living is up almost 20% since 2021, 3 years. Families everywhere are feeling the burden. If you are wondering how in the world you can save on monthly expenses, start with your phone bill. I'm happy to announce that Pure Talk is now providing international roaming to over 50 countries. Once again, Pure Talk is investing in their customers with their own money and without charging you an extra penny. As you plan your summer travel, make sure your wireless provider has you covered at home and abroad. PureTalk.com already puts you on America's most dependable 5G network. Now they're offering coverage in over 50 countries as well. Enjoy the freedom of unlimited talk, text, and ample 5G data for just $20 a month with Pure Talk. Not only is their U.S. customer service team ready to assist you with the seamless switch, but they also have fantastic savings on the latest iPhones and Androids. Are you ready to make a switch? Join my cell phone company. I don't own it, but I have the phone and the service. Pure Talk. Start saving today. That's puretalk.com/Knowles, Knowles, to explore their offers. When you make the switch, you will enjoy an additional 50% off your first month. Don't miss out on the opportunity to save on wireless at home and abroad. puretalk.com/Knowles, puretalk.com/Knowles. Speaking of consequences, Hunter Biden is found guilty on all charges. Hunter Biden only had 3 charges brought against him. They all related to buying a gun while he was a crackhead. And so the charges pretty much amounted to lying on a form while he was buying a gun. There are many other crimes that Hunter Biden committed. This is pretty much the least of it. Many, many more serious crimes, and importantly, many more crimes that implicate his father that he wasn't prosecuted for. So they try to let him off the hook completely. Biden's corrupt DOJ gives him even less than a slap on the wrist, tries to make the whole thing be brushed under the rug. A judge says, no, this is too ridiculous. You actually have to prosecute him at least a little bit. So they prosecute him on the lowest level possible. The jury deliberates for 3 hours. We know he did it. We've got pictures and videos and emails and texts. And it's, the guy documented every second of every crime he committed just about. So, okay, now he faces 25 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. Joe Biden has said he will not pardon his son because no one's above the law and Lady Justice is blind. But I said, and I hate to say I told you so, I said at the time, this is bogus. Notice what Biden doesn't say. He doesn't say that he won't commute the sentence of Hunter Biden. So he might be lying. He might pardon him outright. But even if he doesn't pardon him outright, he'll almost certainly commute the sentence. So Hunter Biden will never see a day in jail. So Karine Jean-Pierre, the president's press secretary, was just asked about this directly. Here's her non-answer.
He has said that he has ruled out pardoning his son, but I wondered about a commutation, whether that would be something that would be on the table, a commutation.
So look, as I stated at the top, I don't have anything to say beyond, to your first question, beyond what the president's statement was yesterday. He's been very clear. We've been very clear. He loves his son.
Yeah. Okay. So of course, he would at least commute his son's sentence and probably would pardon him. And I don't blame him. I don't blame him at all. If it were my kid, I certainly would at least commute his sentence. God forbid that it would be my kid who went that far down a terrible path. God forbid. But if it were, absolutely, and I were in that position, you bet I would. 100%. What's the alternative? The alternative is you let your son rot in prison to score political points. And I don't think there's anything good or noble or virtuous about that at all. And so that's what Biden wants to do. But he can't say that because it looks really bad politically. And, if you are willing to forego the political points to do something that you feel is right for your son, well, then you got to forego the political points. And that might cost you an election. And Joe Biden doesn't want it to cost him an election. So now he's just mumbling and prevaricating and sending his spokesman out to give non-answers to questions for which we know the obvious answer. Yes, Joe Biden will make sure that his son never sees a day in jail. That's pretty much, I think, where all the smart money is. Now, speaking of how much I hate to say I told you so, and speaking of the Hunter Biden conviction, this verdict is a distraction. There were a lot of conservatives who were celebrating, we got Hunter Biden. I said, no, guys, we're getting played here. First of all, he's probably not going to face actual punishments. But second of all, this is a very inexpensive way politically for Democrats to justify the Trump conviction. Donald Trump was convicted in an unprecedented way. First time ever that a former president has been prosecuted, and certainly the first time ever that a former president and current Republican Party nominee has been prosecuted, let alone convicted for crimes that aren't even crimes. Don't forget, in New York, the crime for which he was convicted, the supposed 34 felonies, wasn't actually a felony. I'm not even convinced it was a misdemeanor. It was, according to prosecutors, misfiling some paperwork, categorizing a payoff in a political campaign as a legal expense. As far as I'm concerned, that is a legal expense. What are you supposed to categorize it as? He told his lawyer, take care of some of these problems, which are publicity problems, but they also involve aspects of the law. Just go take care of it. You pay your fixer to do that. Your fixer's a lawyer. That's a legal expense. But even let's say it doesn't qualify as a legal expense. That's a misdemeanor. The misdemeanor would have run out in 2019. So they had to elevate it to a felony. The way they elevate it to a felony to prosecute Trump is they say, well, the misdemeanor was committed in the service of some underlying crime. They never established that Trump committed any underlying crime. In fact, the judge explicitly told the jury, you don't need to agree on what the underlying crime was, just convict him. Say he did something bad, convict him. And by the way, the underlying crime, in this case, the closest thing to maybe an underlying crime would be an FEC violation, an election commission violation, which would have to be at the federal level, not at the state level in New York. And by the way, the federal government looked into it and they didn't prosecute. So the whole thing is just totally bogus. The Trump conviction, Trump is facing a zillion years in prison for a crime he didn't commit, which isn't even a crime. Hunter Biden is facing practically no days in prison for a small fraction of the crimes that we know for a fact he committed. There's no comparison here. Donald Trump, politically extraordinarily relevant. We're talking about a fundamental reordering of our political system. If this guy puts on an orange jumpsuit, even the fact that he's been convicted already reorders our political system. Hunter Biden is just some schmuck. Hunter Biden is just the president's son. And so, anyway, that's what I said. And apparently the Trump campaign agrees with me, because the Trump campaign is quite wise. Statement is, this is from Carolyn Leavitt, the Trump National Press Secretary. This trial has been nothing more than a distraction from the real crimes of the Biden crime family, which has raked in tens of millions of dollars from China, Russia, and Ukraine. Crooked Joe Biden's reign over the Biden family criminal empire is all coming to an end. And on November 5th, never again will a Biden sell government access for personal profit. Yeah, this is it. Do not be distracted, folks. The Trump campaign, they get it. That's good. I'm glad the Trump campaign gets it. Subscribe to the Michael Knowles YouTube channel. Smash that like button, ring that bell, ding that doodad, whatever. Turning to real political issues. Great news coming out of the Congress. The House of Representatives, still controlled by the Republicans, has voted to hold Merrick Garland, Joe Biden's Attorney General, in contempt of Congress. This is important because Steve Bannon, former chief White House strategist for Trump, has just been ordered to go to jail because he was found in criminal contempt of Congress. Pretty shocking. Steve Bannon is, to my knowledge, only the second senior presidential advisor ever to go to jail for contempt of Congress. Do you know who the first one was? Peter Navarro, another Trump advisor, Trump's trade advisor, who is currently sitting in jail for criminal contempt of Congress. First time ever. When you think about Democrats imprisoning their political opponents, recognize it's not just Trump. They're doing it to the associates around Trump, also in ways that are unprecedented, that upend our political order. So why? Why did Bannon and Navarro get sentenced to jail? Because they ignored a congressional subpoena. Okay, well, can't help but notice Merrick Garland also ignored a congressional subpoena. He did the same thing. And now he was found in criminal contempt of Congress. And now, is he going to go to jail? No chance. What Garland says is, it's deeply disappointing that this House of Representatives has turned a serious congressional authority into a partisan weapon. Today's vote disregards the constitutional separation of powers, the Justice Department's need to protect its investigations, and the substantial amount of information we have provided to the committees. I will always stand up for the department, its employees, and its vital mission to defend our democracy. Oh, yeah, today's vote disregards the constitutional separation of powers? Does it now? How about when you libs sent two top presidential advisors to prison? Does that violate the separation of powers? Well, no, it's different. How's it different? The reason that Navarro and Steve Bannon weren't going to play ball with Congress is because that would have constituted a kind of congressional supremacy over the executive, because it would have denied executive privilege, because it would have compromised the constitutional separation of powers. The exact same argument Merrick Garland's making. Well, no, but that's different. They're Republicans. They can rot in jail. You want to talk about the upending our system of norms and the separation of powers, you're trying to imprison the president. You, Merrick Garland, are trying to imprison the president. You, because you're the head of the Justice Department. Well, no, that's different. He's a Republican. He's a great threat to democracy. If we let people vote for the candidate they want to vote for, that would be the end of democracy. So what do we do? He's not going to go to jail. And they're going to say, no, he's a sitting attorney general. There's no way. One thing conservatives might consider doing in the House is we might remember that there was another attorney general who was held in criminal contempt of Congress, not for Joe Biden, but for Barack Obama. That would be Eric Holder. So Eric Holder did pretty much the same thing, and Congress held him in contempt, and Holder made a big fuss about it, but he never faced any actual consequences for it. How about we put him in an orange jumpsuit? If the argument, I don't even know what the argument is at this point. I'm not sure the liberals who are making the arguments know what the argument is. But if the argument is, well, no, you can't imprison the sitting attorney general, that would constitute a grave violation of the separation of powers. So, well, what about the old attorney general? He was held in contempt of Congress. And we have a Republican Congress again that would probably affirm that finding. Why don't we throw Eric Holder in jail? If this is what we do now, if we just jail our political opponents, throw him in jail. Why not? Why not? Well, Michael, because if we wield the law and the government in the way that the liberals do, then we'll be no different than them. No, we'll be quite different from them because we have different political aims and we're different people motivated by different first principles, and we have a different vision for the country. Or we can do nothing, which is what the squishes want to do, and then we can claim the moral high ground, though we would have demonstrated such cowardice. I don't think we can claim the moral high ground. And we can say, well, can you imagine if the shoe were on the other foot? Just you wait. Hypothetically, in the future, we might do something to you. I mean, we won't, but hypothetically, we could. Not a bad idea. You're not going to get Garland. Go after Holder. Now, Congress did something else that was worthwhile yesterday. Very pleased to see this. Thanks to Congressman Jim Banks, who you might recall sent a letter to me and to a number of other mainstream conservatives to inform us that we're on a Ukrainian hit list, a hit list of a Ukrainian organization that was actually founded by a guy who was trained by the State Department, the U.S. State Department. So I appreciated Congressman Banks informing me of this. And he also wrote to the Appropriations Committee chairman and wrote to others in Congress and said, hey, we should probably defund this group. We're funding this group that's threatening and endangering American citizens. We should probably defund that, right? So, happy to say, Republicans on the Appropriations Committee have voted to defund that group, the Data Journalism Agency, known by its nickname Texty. The Data Journalism Agency, founded by Anatoly Bondarenko, who is an instructor for the State Department's Tech Camp program. Okay, I'm glad, obviously we need to defund a group that is putting American citizens and journalists and civilians, private citizens, on hit lists, for sure. Also, we need to ban this lunatic from the country. I never want this animal, Anatoly Bondarenko, ever to be permitted to set foot in America anymore. Put him on every list there is. Put him on a list. How about that? We need to go much, much further than this. I'm very grateful to Congressman Banks and the House Appropriations Committee. Obviously, it's a great first step. Got to defund this group. I think we need to defund a lot of groups. And I think that we need to bar a lot of these people from our country, from having anything to do with our country, especially when these people were trained by the U.S. State Department. Ooh, yikes. The U.S. Talk about the weaponization of government against ordinary American citizens. The U.S. State Department training and funding people who put American citizens on hit lists. We got to do a lot more than defund one little group. I said yesterday, I was in principle, I have no problem with helping Ukraine. I have no particular affection for Putin or the Russian Federation. But can't help but notice in this war between Ukraine and Russia, only one side has put me on a hit list. So as far as I'm concerned, if something doesn't change here, not only should we defund Ukraine, we should start funding Russia. That's how sick I am of the utter vile corruption in our government. Now, speaking of people who are getting fed up with libs, Bill Burr has just made some headlines for saying that he hates liberals, sort of. Bill Burr, according to the San Francisco Gate, was just doing a stand-up set. We don't have audio or video of it, but here's what he said. We have quotes. I effing hate liberals. But he said his issue was not even just with liberals. It was specifically with white liberals because of their hypocrisy. And he pointed out the hypocrisy of the white liberals holding up Black Lives Matter signs, but not doing the real work to break down the systems of oppression that led to the Black Lives Matter movement. He said, that's like if I told you my great-grandmother in Germany had a knock it off Nazis sign. I'm sure it elicited many chuckles from the crowd. And then he goes on, he says, if you run into a white person who says that they're an empath, run the other way. So these white empaths, these are people who like making other people suffering about themselves, those white people, those white liberals. I like Bill Burr well enough. Some of his stuff is funny. I really don't mean to pick on Bill Burr, but this ain't it, man. This ain't it. This is such cautious comedy. This is so safe because, yeah, it's a criticism of liberals from within the framework of liberalism. I'm sick of criticizing liberal white women. I'm sick of it. I know it's funny. I know liberal white women do and say crazy things sometimes, but I'm sick of it because it's cheap, easy comedy. Because that's the group you're allowed to attack because they're white. You can't do jokes about black liberal women. Oh, no, that would be very racist. Or any other racial group. Can't do it. The whites, it's okay. Why? Because that's what liberalism tells us. Liberalism tells us white people bad, Pharisees, and you should insult white people. You should attack white people. And so even women, women get a few more victim points than the men. But if they're white women, you can make fun of them, those stupid Karens. Yeah, you hear this all the time. Oh, my least favorite people in the country is the white liberal women. Or even there's that term for them, awfuls, affluent, white, female liberal. It's kind of funny. They're awful, right? Ha, ha, ha. But no mainstream people would ever make those jokes about other racial groups. Because it's not safe. You could be canceled for doing that. And then here, Bill Burr goes even further. He says his problem with the BLM movement is it doesn't take on the real scourge of white supremacy. So it's affirming, saying BLM is right. BLM is totally right about everything, but the BLM movement doesn't go far enough. That's the punchline of the joke. And that the white liberals who are advancing all of this stuff that's destroying our country, they don't really mean it. That's the point. It's so tedious. I hate to pick on Bill Burr because he's like generally a funny guy. I haven't been that into stand-up comedy since Norm died. There's no number two. It's just Norm and then everybody else. But this ain't it, man. Come on, Burr. Take some risks. Good. Come on. Come on, man. Now, you want to see where you're seeing real criticism of liberalism, turn over to Europe. Great surveys coming out of Europe, specifically with regard to the Utes. Usually in Europe, the Utes are the ones who support all the lib stuff. That's been the story for the last 20 years or more. So this is why all the libs in Europe said, we need to lower the voting age. We need to get more young people involved in politics. The same kind of nonsense you hear in America. Oh yeah, let's get because those young people, they care about climate change and they want more migration and diversity and rainbow stuff. And yeah, the children are the future. Yeah, they ain't saying that anymore. Now I think they want to raise that voting age to 50 because surveys show that the young voters in Europe are pretty right-wing. Like not cut your taxes right-wing. We're talking like deport the migrants right-wing. Surveys show voters in this 18 to 24-year-old bracket are now, in these recent European elections, voting for hard right parties, the Alternative for Deutschland in Germany. The exit polls are showing what is the topic that is motivating them. It's immigration. Immigration is moving voters of all ages to the right in Europe and in America. But you look at Portugal, Italy, Sweden, France, the Netherlands, Germany. The youngest voters are throwing their support behind the most right-wing parties. And it's specifically because of immigration. Even the New York Times is admitting this. We have seen the largest movement of peoples ever into the West. The largest movement of peoples ever, full stop. And those peoples are moving into the West over the last 10, 20, 30, 40 years. In America, it goes back 60, 70 years, actually. And people are sick of it. Not because we don't like the icky foreigners, necessarily. I guess some people don't like the icky foreigners. I don't have a problem with the icky foreigners in principle, and many of them are not icky. But the problem is you can't just throw open the borders to your country and expect everything to be simpatico. It really damages the labor market in ways to the working class. It helps the wealthier classes, but it damages the economy for the working classes. And it just jumbles up your culture because you have people who don't speak your language, who don't have your customs, who don't do the basic things that make a polity a polity. Young people noticing that. Even the New York Times noticing that. You know what I say? The kids are all right. My favorite comment yesterday is from Doorman, Oh, no, it's not. There's no R in there. It's just like a term for excrement. Man 26, who says, when a society is really cooking, Michael talking like Zoomers. It's funny that is Zoomer talk, right? They say, well, let him cook. He's cooking. But it's also old slang. Say like, oh, man, we're cooking now, baby. Let's go. We're really cooking, huh? And so it reminds me that slang comes back sometimes. It just comes back. And so not only am I looking forward to the slang of my youth coming back, bomb.com, oh snap, that's fat, that's what's up, dog, I don't know, whatever. Not even just that. I want the really old slang to come. I want the 100-year-old slang, 23 skidoo. That's what, 23 skidoo, kids, for real, for real. Now, speaking of punishment, talking all about punishment. The punishment of the liberal political order, the punishment of the enemies of the liberal political order. Well, let's talk about people who I think everybody agrees should be punished, and that is Now, speaking of dastardly people living in the shadows among us, are aliens living underneath the earth? Theory posited not by late night talk radio, not by the conspiracy theorists with the tinfoil hats, but by Harvard researchers. There is a paper out. I encourage you to read it, or at least to read the abstract of it, which is available on ResearchGate. This comes from researchers at Montana Technological University, and Harvard suggests that UAP, which is the new term for UFOs, unidentified anomalous phenomena or aerial phenomena instead of unidentified flying objects, the source of those things could be underground. Some theories from the paper. A remnant form of ancient civilization remains on Earth, albeit hidden. An intelligent species evolved separately from humans and now stays hidden. Like Bigfoot or something, except Bigfoot's kind of a dummy, and these guys would be really smart. Crypto-terrestrials traveled from another time period or planet, and they live among us, but we don't really see them a lot because they're underground a lot. And then finally, this research posits that the unidentified creatures are of supernatural origin, likened to earthbound angels. And I'll translate that from Harvard speak, research speak, into the way you've probably heard that last theory before. Oh, they're interdimensional demons. That last one, that just is the Alex Jones theory. And in fact, there's a little bit of Alex Jones theories to a number of those possibilities. I really like this. Some of these I think are kind of silly, but the last one, the notion that the unidentified creatures are of supernatural origin, meaning they're, spirits or apparitions, seems to me, look, they're probably illusions a lot of the time, probably just hallucinations a lot of the time, but the notions that these things, which defy the laws of gravity, or more broadly the laws of physics, might be spiritual. That is a view held by every civilization ever for all of human history, and it seems like there's maybe some wisdom there. And now even fancy Harvard researchers with their tweed coats and their spectacles in tortoiseshell, they're saying the same thing. And the thing I love about the story is not that it sheds light on the UFOs or demons or angels or crypto-terrestrials underneath lakes and volcanoes. The thing I love about it, and I didn't even get to read the abstract from the paper, but they say, in the spirit of epistemic humility and openness, these views deserve genuine consideration. The thing I love is that in the year of our Lord, 2024, Harvard scientists are now finally suspecting what illiterate ancient shepherds knew instinctively and intuitively. Yeah, there's some weird stuff in this world, and maybe. And there's some weird, it seems like ancient civilizations where doesn't quite make sense. We don't really know a lot about this world, and there's a spiritual component to the world, and there's angels and demons and stuff. That illiterate Palestinian shepherds in the first century understood that just as a matter of course. And then it's just, it's the IQ bell curve meme. That's they like, oh, it's probably like demons and stuff. And then in the midwits, they say, no, it's got to be actually, it might be from planet Zebulon 7, the thing and the but and the doop and the d. And then you get up to the highest part of the IQ bell curve and say, yeah, it's probably just interdimensional demons. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Okay. We are now entering the Membrum segmentum. I have a friend of mine coming on the show. That would be Kirk Cameron. The rest of the show continues now. You don't want to miss it. Become a member. Use code Knowles, Canada WLAS, at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans.